the UK is fighting back fiercely against digital ID. Ever since Keir Starmer announced mandatory digital ID on the 26th of September,
I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID.
we have been going guns blazing, everything we can to resist this, which is really, really great to see. It started out with campaign groups popping up all over the country, and protests and stickers and leaflets and all these people coming together, channeling the activist energies against digital ID. Very much so like what happened before when we defeated digital ID previously, when Tony Blair under the Labour government tried to roll this out. So what actually is digital ID, quickly, because there's a few things flying around, and just to make it simple. Digital ID is, firstly, the BritCard, which Keir Starmer announced, which is what we defeated before with Tony Blair, although it wasn't called the BritCard. It's the same thing. It's a card, whether it's digital or physical, whatever this is, some sort of card that ties together all of your different IDs online to one card. Unfortunately, this scheme can lead to massive control and influence in our lives, which we cannot trust any government with. Let's be real, it doesn't matter who they are. There are just some things we just don't need. We don't need the government involved with our lives to this magnitude, and that's what digital ID is in the form of the BritCard. That's the most important thing to focus on. That's what a lot of the resistance around the country is focused on, and that's actually what we are making progress against, because Keir Starmer's already gone from a very high position of saying mandatory to now saying, well, it's going to be voluntary, but we're going to make it very, very difficult for you to not have it. And eventually they will just try and get to the point where you have to have it to be a part of society, because that's what their end goal is. They might say something and then change it and whatever, but their end goal is ultimately to get this through to control the population. That's what it all is. So just because he's temporarily climbed down from his very high position doesn't mean that it's over and we've won. It just means that it's a tactical retreat rather than a surrender. So that's what's happened so far. Because of the massive public outrage, and our efforts are paying off. But then it transitioned into the political level. But before we get into what's been going across all of the councils over the country, which is really, really awesome to see, we also need to mention the other side of digital ID, which is a little bit more subtle, but equally as dangerous, and will unfortunately, if left unchecked, achieve the same goals that the BritCard is aiming to achieve, although it would take a bit longer and they have to do it a bit more sneakily and behind the scenes. But it's still happening, and the big part of this sneaky side of digital ID is the one login. Sector by sector, government service by government service, it's being brought under the umbrella of one login. This is essentially digital ID by stealth, which is just going to be a centralized database of all of your information, and you'll need to prove who you are to be able to access government services, or maybe even the internet, or go to work, or so on, or just interact with society in any kind of way, because this leads to ultimate control over the population. The government are then able to do whatever they like. They're able to make sure that none of the citizens in any part of the country are stepping too far out of the allocated path of life, which of course leads to slavery and despair. But that's obviously what our enemies want. They want humanity in this very narrow path of slavery and despair, thinking only what they say that they can think. They don't want people thinking outside of the box and living a life that doesn't serve these slavery overlords. So that's essentially what they're trying to do. And this is happening through the back door with, for example, they will paint it in a pretty bow of virtue, saying that having to get people to prove their age to view certain content on social media or certain websites is to protect children. Now, of course, who doesn't want to protect children, right? So they'll say this and put it in a nice bow, but that bow is complete bullshit, because the end goal is to enslave humanity. So that's what they're trying to do. But they're just tricking and lying to the population the whole time, saying it's for your own good. It's just a little bit of censorship over here, a little bit of blocking over here, it's just an age verification check here, it's just now veterans that have to do this, now it's company directors, and before you fucking know it, everybody needs to have some form of this digital ID to interact with society. So this could be achieved with the BritCard. However, we've had massive resistance against this, and as long as we keep up the pressure, I do believe we will defeat this scheme. But then that isn't the end of the battle, because we wouldn't have won, our enemies wouldn't be completely defeated. It's just one battle in a long war that we are fighting, good versus evil, essentially. And this new BritCard is just a new frontier, a new battle that has to be fought and won. But then it would move on to attacking the actual infrastructure behind all of it, and ensuring that we keep the government in check. They don't ever get too much power that they can use against us in whatever way they may choose. Because we only have to take one look at China to see the insane levels of tyranny and lack of freedom that can come from having far too much power in government hands, and with all of that backed with a huge digital technological fuckery, then it becomes very, very dangerous to anybody who wants to live a free life, anybody who wants to have independent thoughts, their own creative thoughts that aren't just part of the programming. It becomes very, very difficult to live. Right now in the UK, or as bad as things are here right now, it could be so much worse. We have a relative high level of freedom in a few different areas, although that is crashing down before us in real time, because we now lead the world in the amount of people that are being arrested for wrong thing online. We used to lead the world in like how to run a society and how to act in this world, and what it means to have a effective political system and commerce and all of these different things. That is unfortunately long gone, and the British Empire has crumbled, and who knows if we'll ever get to anywhere like we were before. But right now we're leading the world in social media arrests and electricity prices, and overall just fucking bullshit. So it doesn't have to be like this. And what's really great to see though is this is the first issue that I've seen since the COVID times that's brought enough people together. Because even though I've been fighting against the climate con for 3 years now since COVID calmed down, that wasn't a unifying enough of an issue. It's a very important issue. We have made massive progress and we've done huge damage to that agenda. I'm very proud of the Climate Con Army and what we have achieved over these past 3 years. But it wasn't quite the same as this new digital ID announcement. Firstly, because obviously this is so in your face. With the Climate Con, it's very much behind the scenes. Unless you're trying to run a business or whatever, or you actually look into things a little bit, you wouldn't almost know it's there, but it is, and it's causing suffering. But the digital ID unites enough of us that I have huge confidence we will be able to defeat the BritCard easily. If everybody continues to put in the effort, this will be an easy win. It's a lot of effort, but relatively speaking, it's a pretty easy win. The thing is that we have to take this action. It's incredibly important that we do, but then what starts to happen is we have culture and the information war at the very top, and our efforts are focused on changing the outcome of this. Like the more that we change the way people think in alignment with our goals instead of what the enemy are doing, which is changing the way people think in alignment with their goals, even if it's against their own interest that people just don't realise. So this is what we're fighting against. But then you have the culture information war here, and then that trickles down into the political level, and then suddenly you'll get councillors in the right positions of power that will be able to make a decision, and that goes all the way up to eventually, hopefully, that we get decent government in positions of power in Westminster. We'll see if Reform are actually up to the task. But even prior to that, what we've seen on the council level is huge sectors of the population opposing digital ID, different councils passing motions, and even entire countries now saying that we will be against digital ID. That is so huge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through just a little list here, because it's important just to be aware of all the different little battles that have been happening over here, because a lot of people in our movement, and I understand, for the past 100 years, all of our lives, all we've ever known is the twin dildos of Labour and Conservative taking turns to fuck us over and destroy this country in slow motion. So people are just like, I give up on politics. But unfortunately, I believe our enemies, that's exactly what they want. They want us, especially the Truth and Movement, who would be great to be involved with politics because we're aware of the deeper dynamics of what we're facing, and we know what the true cause of a lot of the problems are, and we can come up with the better solutions. but we would be very powerful in positions of political power. They want to make us disenfranchised and give up controls of the lever of power of our societies to someone else. However, there are some of us still who do believe in the power of politics and what you can do in these realms, in these spheres. And I've met them on the ground. Like, you know, if you've got councillors that are awake in positions of power, they can do things when they get power on the local level, like removing woke bullshit from all of the literature and libraries, like the trans literature. That is actually really, really powerful when you think about it, because that can scale up all over the country. But that's just shows you what you can do if we have the right people in positions of political power. I like to inspire a bit of hope and positivity that we can make change if we have the right game plan and we enact it properly and believe. That's importantly, probably the most important thing is actually believe that we can change things here, and it's not all set in stone, and we don't have to just give up our power to some whoever. So these different councils, and also you've got it with the Climate Con, the different councils over the across the country with Reform led have declared there's no climate emergency anymore. I mean, how huge is that? That's again another example of what can happen. So this is what's interesting though, is as I mentioned previously, that this digital ID scheme is an issue that unites lots of people together all across the board, which is very awesome to see, because we're seeing councils from Reform to the Greens to Liberal Democrats to Conservative all banding together against this one issue, which is really great. It's not uniform. There are some Conservative councils that are on board with this and whatever, but across the board, overwhelmingly, it's a unifying issue, which is really great to see. So now, this table is available on the notedigitalid.uk website. It's the latest article on there, and you can go through this table, which I'm about to run through, and click on the links and see where I've gotten all this information from. But I won't go in too much detail. I'll just quickly run through. This is a list, firstly, of councils that have either approved a motion against digital ID and have effectively rejected it in their area, or they've proposed a motion and it's been rejected, or they're in the process, or they've at least made strong vocal statements and documentation that shows that they are against digital ID. Now, if there's any on this list I may have missed, please do leave a comment or write in, just let me know, because I'm sure there might have been one or two councils somewhere that I haven't found on this list, but it's a pretty comprehensive list, so here we go. So, here are the councils that have passed a successful motion, and this is the Northamptonshire Council, which was a Reform/UK Conservatives, passed a motion calling it a clear danger and authoritarianism, and here's the letter to the PM, and it was passed. Very great to see that. Cornwall Council, which is huge because that's obviously an entire county, big county, that has said no. Overwhelming vote, 68-1 against convenience over liberty. It's not worth the trade-off, guys. It's not worth trading freedom for convenience in any way, shape or form. Then there's Wakefield Council, which is very recent, very happy to see that. The motion was passed to oppose digital ID. They wrote to the Home Secretary, and that was led by Reform Councillor Michael Graham. Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council was very happy to see that. They posed a motion to oppose digital ID, very, very good. The Belfast City Council passed statements opposing bureaucracy as infringing the Good Friday Agreement, and the Stormont, the actual Parliament in Northern Ireland, have also been very vocal against this, which is really great to see. And again, we've got Derry City and Starbank District Council, which is in Northern Ireland, which has passed statements rejecting undue identity grounds. Very great to see that. Now here's a few that have tried to pass something and unfortunately it's been rejected. It's the West Northamptonshire Council, and this was a Reform proposed motion that was blocked by the Conservative chair, Councillor Alison Eastwood, as a national issue. Check out what he had to say here.
Yes, under Rule 6.2, this motion concerns national identity cards, which are a matter for Parliament and not for this authority. Under Rule 6.2, it does not relate to any function or responsibility of this Council and is therefore not a competent motion. Thank you.
I thank you. We need to confer. Talk amongst yourselves for a couple of minutes. Thank you for your patience. I've taken advice and I am not prepared at this stage to take the motion. I thank you.
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Arnold.
May I seek a a verdict from the monitoring officer in the view that this similar motion was debated in North Northants Council so many weeks ago. If I may, please.
Yes, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Fundamentally, it's a decision for the chair as to whether or not she accepts the motion. I provide advice, and it is a matter for her to determine whether or not to move forward with that. What another council does is outside of our remit to consider.
So, I mean, come on. Surely he could have just said, we're going to go against this. But whatever, this is just shows it's a battle, right? There's many different fights to be fought here. The Havant Borough Council was a reform proposed rejection, unfortunately. So reform proposed the motion that was rejected, voted down by the Lib Dems Labour Green coalition, and that was by the proposed motion was by Councillor Sharon Collins. So big ups to that. And again, in Newport City Council, Conservatives proposed an opposition citing privacy and civil liberty risks and costs, but that was blocked by Labour, criticising it as misinformation. And yeah, so there we go. So there's a few there. And here we have just a few more honourable mentions, if you will. And these are different councils that have not passed a motion, but at least on the way to passing one, or have voiced their concerns publicly about digital ID. And you've got the Wirral Council, which is Merseyside, and the Lib Dems proposed a motion citing risks to vulnerable groups and privacy and so on, and it's pending a full council vote. We'll see what comes from that one. And here we go. The Scottish Government and regional councils, for example Aberdeen, the First Minister Sweeney opposes, and there's a statements and vocal opposition has been made that they will decline and reject and resist digital ID, which is obviously pretty huge if Scotland is able to pull that out of the bag and say no, we're not doing it. And again here we're just mentioning that Northern Ireland has been very, very vocal here in saying that they do not want digital ID. And you've got the Stevenage Borough Council, which has been vocal on Facebook. Their local Facebook group has been saying, their page, not the group, their actual official page, has been very, very vocal in their opposition to digital ID. Very happy to see that. And finally, the Brighton and Hove Council, which is actually Green-led, but they've been proposing committee motions on civil liberties, and they call of the scrapping of the digital ID scheme with 32 signatures on a proposed motion against digital ID. This is an excellent start. There's loads and loads of people that are represented in all those different councils all over the country, and it shows you this is what we can do if we have people in positions of power in the political realm. Now, this battle is far from over. The UK government, Labour, have just announced £1.8 billion in funding for digital ID, and we can be sure that that number will go up. This is what we're up against. I mean, we don't have billions of pounds to play with, but we do have a decentralised army that are active and powerful and want to take action and are ready to fight back against this tyrannical government. We've proven ourselves worthy of being able to handle this battle throughout the years. We're battle tested, battle hardened. We had victories throughout COVID, to anybody who was paying attention, which shows us that we can defeat part of their agenda if we come together and unite and organise effectively. So that £1.8 billion, it's a lot of money, but we can counter that with our own decentralised army that's going across the lands, stickering and leafleting and going to the protests and engaging with the community and raising awareness on this incredibly important issue. And we will be able to defeat Goliath. Or are they David and we're Goliath? I guess if we don't use our power, we are definitely David against Goliath. But if we actually understood how much fucking power we had and we used it, the enemy is David and we are absolutely 100% Goliath. So let's tap into that power energy. Let's tap into that warrior energy, people. There's many protests still coming up against digital ID. Make sure you follow the Instagram account at NoDigitalID.UK and again on Telegram, No Digital ID UK. Both those channels, I'm always posting the latest protests, and you can get there, make your voice heard, and be a part of the warriors on the front line who are leading the charge against digital ID. And if you haven't yet grabbed your stickers or leaflets, They've been doing really, really well. We've got tens of thousands of stickers have gone out. These bad boys right here, we have been covering the country with these stickers. Very, very powerful stickers. And now, coming this week, we have these leaflets, which are huge. The No Digital ID leaflets. Very, very powerful, very professional, look great, and they have a very strong message in there, but it's not so scary and intimidating that it just puts off your average normie. You can hand this leaflet to anybody and they'll pick it up and they'll at least be like, oh, this, looks good. It's not instantly saying there's a depopulation agenda and I'm going to die tomorrow because of some grand scheme that's been going on for centuries or whoever. Doesn't jump into the deep end, and that's what we actually want. We want to be targeting the people that are just sort of on the cusp and they just maybe just need the right information in the right way, packaged correctly and professionally and not too scary, that they then join our side and join our ranks, because that is how we are going to win this, guys. It's a numbers game to a point, and then it's those people who are awake, doing everything that they need to do, but that's another subject. But the first battle is definitely numbers. It's definitely about getting as many people on board as possible. Everyone needs to know about our campaign against digital ID, and not just us, but all of the different campaign groups. The fact that they just need to be aware there is an entire movement across the country that is against digital ID, and this leaflet and these stickers are the first step to raising awareness on how we need to defeat digital ID. These are like modern day information war, bullets and tanks and bombs. This is what we have in the modern world, in the information era, the information war and the culture war. These are our weapons. So I highly advise everybody grabs some weapons, joins the warriors on the front lines as we together defeat digital ID.